Welcome, welcome, welcome to this week's abbreviated edition of the Do It Now show. So, what can you control? What can't you control? We're on a roll. Dr. Kayvon K was the one who inspired this, but Dr. Kayvon K ain't feeling A-OK. So, we're going to do 20 minutes today, and we're going to give him the floor for part 2. So, John,
Nice.
Can you control your cat or your wife?
I guess none of those.
None of the above.
At least not today.
Oh man! So Dr. K had actually put this up on Instagram, this little item, and I thought we would just talk a little bit about the things that you can control in business and in your personal life, and those that you cannot.
Yes.
And so let me pull this up on the screen. We can talk about it a little bit. This is actually in preview, so hopefully this works. Can you see it? Yes.
I can.
You can see it. Okay, good. Thank you, Jesus, and whoever else does this. Oh, this little logo needs to move, though. Look what we can do. We can control where the logo goes.
How cool is that?
I think that is just brilliant. Thank you, Melon, for allowing us to exercise a small degree of control on a Friday. But you're actually consuming an adult beverage today, right?
I am.
Okay, good. And you're going to be still with us and more than just spirit?
Absolutely.
As opposed to spirits? That would be
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to take a peek at this. So this was from I think Dr. K got this from sharing from Mindful Enough, I think is the name of it, or it may have more dots to it. And when we're looking at a lot of these things, one of the items that pops into my head is this notion, this misnomer that we are always in control. Because a lot of entrepreneurs are control freaks. Would you agree?
I would totally agree with that.
Or aspiring control freaks. Like nobody can do it better than I can.
Exactly. Or micromanagers.
Or micromanagers. Yeah, micromanagers are definitely in the illusion
category.
Yeah, they're in the illusion that they can control everybody else's behaviors. And I think, well, it's this whole thing. You've had to study this before, probably in school at RIT. It's the intrinsic control, locus of control, or intrinsic motivation versus external motivation. And
yeah, I don't think we spent a lot of time on that, but
you didn't. Okay,
no, we were too busy focusing on creating things and engineering new things.
Well, so engineers, though, I think to a great extent, you do focus on those things that you can control
naturally.
Yeah. As opposed to, but there are a lot of instances, in particular when you're dealing with staffing issues and other things like that in a large firm, where the actions of others really are outside of your sphere of control. And I think, though, that we get a little frustrated because we think that the micromanaging is a great example. You're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm sure you've had some bosses who've done that.
Oh God, don't even get me started.
I need to get you started because we have 20 minutes to fill. Anyway, so.
It would take more than that. I could fill
more than 20 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Well, and I think that the question is, so what happens around you, whether you have project management, whether you have anything like this, for example, a live stream, there's certain things that you just can't control. Like we had an episode today with some AI software, which was going on the fritz for just about everybody.
Oh, wow.
Some of my coaches and others. And I tried writing some stuff today and it was totally out of my control. So, I mean, I could get frustrated with it, but my own thoughts and my own emotions about it was like, hey, there's nothing I can do about it. The AI, the software is not working. And SAS was being really sassy and I couldn't do anything about it. And I like to use it once in a while to give me suggestions on how to write an intro or a promo for this particular show that we do. But then I just wind up, changing at least half of it into my own words anyway. So.
True.
So, what about the stuff, what people think of you? Because I think that's one of the things that we're always concerned about. Well, I know we are with short form video, with live streams and everything else. What are your thoughts on that?
So that's a very good question. So I think people like us, entrepreneurs, we tend to not get as wrapped up in the opinions of others because I think we've trained ourselves not to do that. And it's kind of easy to find somebody that's more entrepreneurial or a business owner because we really don't give two hoots about the opinion of others for the most part.
We give three hoots. No, only because what comes to mind is that John and I have both been doing a lot of short form video, so
Yeah,
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. And I will say that, you have to become a little thick skinned because people will ridicule you. And
yeah.
so what other people think of you is not nearly as important as what you think of you. And as you said earlier, comparing yourself not to others, but comparing your past self to the present self in hopes that the future will take care of itself.
Well, let's put it a little different way. I
Okay.
think anytime you're going to be in the eye of public opinion or out in front of others, you're
Hmm.
always going to be the subject of a certain amount of ridicule. There are always going to be people who
Yeah.
don't resonate with your message, and you do have to get thick-skinned about it, and you do have to realize that they don't matter. And what does matter is the people who do resonate with your message. Those are your peeps. And
Not
exactly,
the yellow marshmallow treats popular at Easter time.
exactly.
Okay.
And so we can't really be concerned about the opinions of other people. That's something other people do. And it's funny. I think we notice a lot more people that are affected by the opinions of others because it just doesn't bother us. We're like almost impervious to it at this stage of our
Well,
lives.
I will disagree because I'm not impervious. And what I've found
Yeah.
myself lately doing when I go to YouTube Shorts or I look at my TikToks and things, I'm like, why don't more people like my videos? But then I have to step back and
Hmm.
say, or particularly if there's something like there was one that I did something on my mom on YouTube Shorts and I got like 63 likes, but then there were like 3 dislikes. And who dislikes my mom? That really bothered me a lot.
I know. Well, that's
And I
true.
had to pull back into what I could control, which is, and even talking about it, my palms get sweaty, which is really interesting.
Mm.
So I
Well,
think it depends on what you're doing. It's almost like
yeah,
I have not quite developed the get off my lawn attitude that Mr. Paduchak has.
that's true. And there are things that bother me some too, and I it's it would be ridiculous to say that none of us are bothered by the opinions of others, but it's do we give purpose and weight to the opinion of others?
Yeah, and I think there's certain senses of what when you go back into this inner circle here, what do I give my energy to? What do I pay
Exactly.
attention? What are the goals that I have are basically sharing content, may it be video or written content or whatever it turns out to be, and what boundaries do I set within myself in terms of what the external world means. And
Right.
I think that's this whole thing about, but I come back to motivation too. Entrepreneurs, we have to have this inner, I was going to say inner winner, but I mean this sort of inner fire or intention as to what we're
Mhm.
doing, which will help us to ignore all the other stuff outside of ourselves. you know
Right.
and that comes into also the thing about maintaining sort of a relatively positive attitude. How much time do you spend watching the news? How much time are you on Fox, on CNN, on various websites and blogs and social media? There has to be, now if social media is the thing that you do as an agency owner, it's going to be a little bit different than if you are just consuming it because you just want to get yourself all riled up.
Yeah, and I think it's hard in general to kind of celebrate the no's
Hmm.
because that's but but
Like
after a while
KNOWS or NO?
the no
NO.
and
Okay.
no because you just realize that just gets you closer to a yes. And that's usually where we're most affected by the opinions of others, when we're talking about things that maybe they don't agree with or whatever it might be. But every no gets us that much closer to a yes. So it's almost like you learn at first to play a game with it and try to make rejection fun.
Well, I mean, that's the new John Paduchek program, How to Make Rejection
How to
Fun,
make rejection fun.
available for $3.45. You got to put the link in the chat. Anyway, um, so I'm trying. So one of the things too is past and future stuff. So the past. I see people always say, "Oh, the past is a predictor of the future." I totally disagree, because if the
Yeah,
past was a predictor of the future, I would now be a corporate attorney. and I'm not.
Exactly.
And so,
The past.
well, in the past, I was, pre-law, Harvard Law School, so that was my goal. Anyway, but that's not my goal anymore. So the past and my behaviors were, pre-law courses and everything else like that. But and the opinions of others and what happens around you and all this other stuff like that, it's how much time do we spend listening to the noise that's
Yeah.
outside of us, or the what they call the shiny object syndrome, or a squirrel. I'm pretty squirrely sometimes on my
Right.
own. I don't need help, getting extra squirrely by consuming too much social media. But I think, when you're talking about the numbers game, I think that's a really important thing. Like, how do you speak to yourself? Okay, you've just had a 999 rejections. Hey, the next one could be it.
It could be.
Could be the sale that's going to make all the other
could be the deal. So I've been trained to look at it from a sales standpoint,
Yeah.
but also from other standpoints. And I think the other thing that's important.
What other standpoints? Yeah. See, now you got my curiosity piqued.
Well, even, gosh, I don't even know how to describe what I'm thinking at the moment. But I think the other thing that's important too, if you develop concern about the opinions of others, is reframing things a lot of times is a good technique to get around that.
So give me an example. Let's say something, that we had that with Twitch a long time.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that guy, look at the shape of his head, or this or that. So what's the reframing on that, other than what we just stopped doing Twitch? That was
that was definitely the reframe for me.
That was the reframe.
We just stopped doing Twitch, or you just realize that you can't please everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's, and if you're a people pleaser. Yeah, I mean, I've been a big time people pleaser. Like in my practice, like, when I first started out, it was like, oh, how can I make this better for you? Oh, you don't have to fill out the forms, or you don't do this, that, let me make it. Because at the very beginning of starting a business, you feel desperate. It's like anybody who's breathing and throws a credit card at you is the person that you want in your office or in your business. And then as you become more successful, you're less dependent on the opinions of others, and you've got your goals really set, and you have a sense of what you're going to give your energy to. Like in my old chiropractic practice, I had people coming in who were like ex-NFL football players, for example. One in particular said, don't you know who I am? And I was like, no, I really don't.
I don't care.
I have no idea. I don't care. So, and it's like, but he wouldn't fill out his forms. He wouldn't fill out the application form, if you will, which is basically patient information. He wouldn't follow the rules. He wouldn't follow the time schedule. So I fired him within like about 10 minutes of the consultation. I said, nope,
sometimes you got to do that.
And he came back. He came back and was the most compliant person you can imagine. I think it's because he was so famous in the DC area. Nobody had ever said no to him.
Well, I think the other thing you got to realize is that we don't know what's going on in other people's heads.
Mm-mm.
I mean, we just have no idea. And so the best way of approaching that is, you don't know what you don't know. So,
well, it's not judging people
too. You kind of keep it in your mind. Yeah, you can't be
judged, not lest ye be judged. And so that's from my grandfather, of course. The minister drummed that in my head. But you don't know. I mean, somebody cuts you off in traffic. Maybe they just found out that their mother died, and they're trying to get to the hospital as fast as possible.
Who knows? Anything.
Funeral home, who knows? And so, or their kid just got sick, and they have to get to the school before the school is closed, and their sick child is left outside. Of course, I don't think anybody at school would ever do that to somebody.
Or somebody comes at you unusually and ridiculously angry.
Oh yeah.
And you just go, what's up with that? They're not usually that type of person. So,
right.
A lot of times people are angry and they're not upset for the reason that they even think they're upset.
Well, give me an example. So one of my instructors from many years ago, I mentioned that he was in his chiropractic practice, and he was he approached some. There was a patient who came in, like a brand new patient, and this woman just slapped him in the face. And he was like, what the heck was that all about? And so he dug deeper after he kind of recovered from the shock, and found out that, so he had this mustache, and it turns out the mustache and his general demeanor reminded this woman of her ex-husband who cheated on her.
Wow.
He wound up keeping her as the patient, which is remarkable because I don't know if I would have done that. But the thing is, you're talking about there's all kinds of stuff beneath the surface that you have no idea what's happening there.
Mm.
And I fortunately haven't gotten slapped in the face by a patient or a client for that matter.
Well, that brings up an interesting point. I think that's why it's really important to be kind of an open book about things. The more humility you have about things, the more you can try to relay what's going on with you versus just be silent about it. Because we don't know what's happening with people, and if all they have to do is say, but most people are afraid to say what's going on.
Yeah, just
So
ask a question for God's sakes.
yeah, or
Conclusions.
or just saying, geez, such and such happened today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
What's going on with you then?
What I like about this diagram that the infamous Dr. Kayvon K has shared with us is, seeing past and future, because that's my big thing is past and future. So in general, fear seems to be the major thing that gets us all the time.
It is a big one. Yep.
Yeah. But fear of the past tends to be depression and regret and all these other things that stop you from doing things. And fear of the future tends to be the worries, the anxieties, all the other things that prevent you from taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're focused more on those things that we can control, we're not full of regret from the past, nor are we full of anxiety and fear of the future.
Yeah, it seems like
that sends us into this little circle. Yeah.
Seems to me we spend a lot of time on the things that are out of our control.
Yeah. Well, we do.
More than what we can control.
Maybe it's an insurance company that's not financing or paying out on your medications.
Yeah,
maybe it's could be. Maybe it's
I don't know anything about that.
No, maybe it's your stepson is suddenly playing his saxophone a little too loud during your live stream.
Oh.
Could be. Not saying that I have ever had an experience with that one either.
But hey, that's out of our control.
Yeah, it was out of my control. The best you can do is adapt to it. Well, we've had technology go bad. I mean, this happens all the time, not just the AI I was talking about earlier, but sometimes our live streams aren't working. Like our friend Dean, we had Restream wasn't working, and it turned out that you couldn't broadcast on with Restream into your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn company page. Whereas in the past, you could do it. And so Dean and we were all together just making multiple tries at getting Restream, the streaming software, to work.
You know what this reminds me of a bit as we go through this? Camera confidence.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Because all of these things are the same with camera confidence. We're concerned what other people think of us as we're trying to go on camera. We're concerned about past mistakes. We're wondering what other people think about what we're saying. We're concerned about the things that happen around us, and people are very forgiving about anything that's going on. The outcome of my efforts. Let's think about that. And there's some of that involved in there too. The future. Wow, I had this thing blow up on me yesterday. What's going to happen tomorrow? How others take care of themselves.
What do you look like in terms of, a lot of it has to do with you can't, like, even when we have coaching clients, like for our Strategic Video Masters group, which is closed right now, it's when you're looking at the how others take care of themselves, I mean, are they really doing the things that they need to do to become better at short form video? Are they posting? Are they this? And I've had sometimes tremendous anxiety about, are we giving enough to them to enable our students, our coaching clients, to project things out into the world on their own?
Right.
And then you're thinking of, the sort of the past, have I failed at doing this? How can I do better? Eventually you get to the point where it's like, you have to stop being the people pleaser, as we said before, and recognize you give people, it's the whole thing about teaching a man to fish versus giving a man a fish. And I'm getting very biblical today. It must be like
you are. But anyways,
preacher mode on.
For example, that it's very much like teaching people camera confidence. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about what's in my control, right? I can control my own thoughts and actions.
Yep. And I
How
think that sometimes we think that we're out of control in our thoughts. And I think that's a
yeah,
question of neuroplasticity and focus and really being able to just hone in on exactly what your goals are, focusing your energy, because after all, the whole notion of, wherever focus goes, energy flows. That's the type of thing that, a lot of people talk about. Whether they
and,
do it is another story.
yeah, it's true. We can change our thoughts in an instant. We don't have to think about something
I just,
we
I
want to
just,
think about.
I just thought of eating breakfast actually, but
Oh, good.
I'm
Good,
on.
good.
Well, that's not a good thought to be thinking right now. I'm on intermittent fasting and keto, so I'm like,
Hey,
oh,
so
there's
let's
only
talk
so
about
much water. There's only so
how I,
much water I can drink right now.
well, that's true. How I speak to myself.
Yeah,
That's
self-talk is
self-talk
huge.
is
Yeah,
tremendously
yeah.
important. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I am such a dummy versus I am brilliant. I am marvelous. I am fun versus God, I am so depressed. I feel like Eeyore sometimes when I say, "Oh, I'm so depressed."
I know.
I know.
Oh dear.
I spend my free time
Yeah.
scrolling through TikTok. Or, I have no boundaries whatsoever, or I have established boundaries. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the time that I'm working. This is the time that we're going to do the live stream. Please don't interrupt me during this time.
I think that was one of the hardest ones for me to learn is boundaries
Hmm.
because I'm definitely I don't want to say I'm a people pleaser because I don't think of myself as a
Yeah,
people
you are.
pleaser,
No, I mean, that's what I
but
view from the outside.
but I do want to be helpful.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, trying to be too helpful is a detriment to getting my own work done.
Yeah.
So that's tough
Well,
one.
I think we actually have another live stream coming up shortly, which is why I don't mean to cut you off on this, but just in a
It's
couple
okay.
of minutes, and we will come back to part 2. And so we know that most of you are watching on replay, so please use the hashtag replay if you have any comments about this broadcast or other topics that you want us to cover. It'd be great to put them in there. And
Mm.
if you have questions for Dr. Kayvon K, drop them down below here because we're in 10 different locations right now. So,
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
yeah. Oh, and speaking of locations, yeah, I'm going to move this back over again just because it's so much fun to be able to move your logo around.
It is.
There we are. Anything
You're
to
right.
add before we head off into our next broadcast? For
No, I think this is going to be a great conversation for next week.
it'll be great because you can dive really deep into this.
It's one of my favorite things to talk about, believe it or
Like a
not.
rabbit hole. Yeah, it's like.
Hmm.
So if you feel like Alice in Wonderland and you want to be with us next time for another dive down the rabbit hole, just let us know and we'll be back next week. Have a wonderful weekend. And if it's Friday at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, it's time for the Do It Now show.